You know the classic story, right? Faust makes a deal with the devil. But what if the devil's greatest trick wasn't the deal itself, but the world he offered it in? Today, we're diving into how one specific moment in history became the perfect, pre-built trap for a soul. And that question right there is really the core of what we're getting into today. It's this idea that the most dangerous traps, the most effective ones, are the cages we don't even recognize we're living in. So let's set the scene. Our story drops us right into a perfect spiritual storm, Germany during the Reformation. Now, this wasn't just some historical backdrop. It was an era of total theological and social chaos, an environment that didn't just witness damnation, it amplified it. And just listen to the language here. A perfect storm of spirit and psyche, a landscape of severe spiritual peril. This completely reframes the setting as an active, dangerous force. It's a psychological battlefield where the soul itself is the ultimate prize. So how did this storm create such a pressure cooker? Well, it all comes down to two immense, crushing forces that were basically tormenting everyone at the time. So you've got these two massive forces squeezing everyone. On one side, you have this deep, personal, high-stakes anxiety. People were just consumed by the idea of eternal judgment, grace, and damnation. And on the other side, a monolithic authority, the absolute, inescapable power of the church and its super rigid rules. Think about it like this. The whole environment was like a deep-sea pressure chamber. It was squeezing people from two directions. From the inside, you've got their own spiritual anxiety, and from the outside, this unyielding religious authority. It created this profound sense of powerlessness and existential dread. Because really, where could you possibly turn? So an environment like that, well, it creates the perfect victim, a scholar who's already broken. The sources actually call this the Rasputin blueprint, this charismatic, brilliant figure who's also wrestling with this deep spiritual ambiguity, forged in that very crucible. So what does this guy look like? Well, he's a disillusioned cleric, or maybe a scholar, someone who's already waiting around in ambiguous spiritual territory. He's got this massive intellectual pride, but he's also plagued by a specific high-stakes existential dissatisfaction that could only have come from living in that time. He's brilliant, for sure, but he is incredibly vulnerable. And this is the absolute key. His psyche is already fractured by all these competing forces before the devil even shows up. His internal conflict is a perfect mirror of the chaos happening outside. Mephistopheles doesn't actually have to break him. The world has already done that job for him. Which, of course, brings us to our predator. Section 4, the predator's perfect weapon. This is all about how Mephistopheles brilliantly weaponizes this environment. See, he doesn't need to create a weakness, he just has to find the cracks that are already there and pry them wide open. He performs what's described as psychological surgery. He's precisely targeting the wounds that the historical context has already inflicted. He's not some monster with a pitchfork. He's more like a master psychologist, and his scalpel is aimed right at the scholar's deepest fears. And here's exactly how he does it. This is prong number 1 of his assault. The problem? The whole era has created this state of crippling, agonizing doubt about everything, especially salvation. So what's the offer? Gnostic certainty, the ultimate lure, definitive, absolute, forbidden knowledge that promises to end all that doubt forever. Then comes the knockout blow, the second prong of the attack. It directly targets that other pressure point. The problem? The crushing constraint of the church in society. So, the offer? Unrestricted freedom. The promise of absolute liberty from all authority. The chance to finally break out of that deep-sea pressure chamber. Certainty and freedom. I mean, what a perfect bait. So let's look at the deal itself. The ultimate spiritual foreclosure. Because the diabolical pact here isn't framed as some vague magical curse. No, it's presented as a chillingly clear, almost modern transaction. So the pact, right? It's defined as a clear and non-negotiable spiritual transaction. It's the engine of the entire story. It's an unambiguous trade with a very, very real and very steep price. And this just reframes the whole thing, doesn't it? Mephistopheles becomes the ultimate cynical banker of the human spirit. He's not just a classic tempter, he's a cold, calculating lender, offering a deal that seems way too good to be true, because it is. So let's break down the terms of this spiritual loan. you can see there's a catastrophic imbalance. The gain is finite. You get a limited amount of time with power and knowledge. But the collateral, that's infinite, the complete and total damnation of your soul forever. Which leads us to the inevitable, tragic outcome, spiritual foreclosure. You know, just like with a predatory financial loan, the default is basically built into the terms from the very beginning. This is the foreclosure on a spiritual debt, and it serves as the story's incredibly profound moral warning. And that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. If a trap is tailored so perfectly to the anxieties of your time, to your deepest fears, would you even see the bars? It's a chilling question that kind of forces us to look at our own world and ask, what invisible pressures are shaping the choices that we think are entirely our own?